So you've heard the thing, where thoughts go, energy flows. There's a bigger picture there. How you think about your children negatively, how you think about your friends, family negatively, will influence them. Your state of consciousness is so big. It not only jurisdicts the existence that you have, it also jurisdicts the existence that people in your circle have. It's one of the reasons that yogis and Buddhists and spiritually awakening individuals go into deep solitude. Because as you're unraveling the mysteries of the consciousness, the supreme consciousness, you are also unraveling the nature of the universe or the cosmos as you go along. And some of those unravelings will create certain types of energy fields. And in those energy fields, you can be wrong until you realize you're right. So be careful of how you think about people, because they will shine back the reality that you create. And if enough people, that's what like social consciousness is. If enough people think negatively of a particular person, that person will automatically start becoming that negative entity that they are conjuring. With great power comes great responsibility. So I took on negative self-images because of the way I was treated by my stepfather. But all the while, I thought of him as an asshole and an idiot. So there was enough of a degree of separation to where his influence didn't influence me as stringently, but I carried a lot of that weight for a very long time. Like, why couldn't we get along better? Why couldn't we be better friends? Why couldn't he, see that the things that I loved weren't necessarily wrong, but just in his opinion? And that's how generational trauma works. That's how you'll see like the more bubblegum type spirituality will talk a lot about generational trauma or ancestral trauma, and you're like, well, how in the hell? Well, it's a little more complex than that, and it's also a little easier than that. How you're raised is based on how the people that raised you were raised. That's why you have entire family lines that are extremely racist, right? Or they're very misogynistic, or they're very conservative, or very liberal. And you have whole lines until one person, the black sheep in the family, changes the dynamic. So if you don't want your kids to end up like you raise them differently and give them a whole new set of traumas. You're going to give your children trauma. It's just what's going to happen. Unless you're just this enlightened being where everything is bubblegum and sunshine, you're going to instill certain traumas. What you want to do with your kids and with your friends and your family, your students, is to instill upon them the notion that they are very much responsible for themselves, that they make the energy. So you'll see in tight circles of friends, there's one that has the most energy. They're the most convicted, they're the most direct, and they're the most confident one in the group. And generally that one person jurisdicts the nature of the group. There's always a leader. In every family, every social event, every political stratum, amongst billionaires, there's always the one that is a little bit more energetically prone than the rest, and everybody follows. That is the nature of the guru. That's it. A guru is not only enlightened, they're awakened to themselves enough to where they get to energetically jurisdict the motions of the people around them. And it's as hard and as simple as that. So watch carefully what you do as you're becoming more conscious, more aware of yourself. Just notice the things, unravel the things. No judgment. You don't need to judge what you've done in your life. You don't need to be guilty or ashamed or anything like that. Just watch your habits, how you do things, why you do things. Because nothing is intrinsically wrong and nothing's intrinsically right. And there's a balance, a center point. That's what Tesla talked about with the 3-6-9 strategy. And it really reflects a spiritual strategy, mind, body, spirit, right? So if your mind's tuned and you start working the body in whatever way you can, just try, then naturally things go to a spiritual center. That's what the triangle is. You know, the all-seeing eye, the Illuminati, all the scary shit that we're told by society and the news and all the nonsense, all the rubbish. What that is actually getting at is 3, 6, 9. Balance point. God is the balance point. There's no need for labels. There's no need for constructive criticism. There's no need for identity. There's only purpose. There's only consciousness, the singularity, the one. Now that's getting really esoteric, okay? And not a lot of people are into Gnosticism or manifestation or things like that. But what it really means is, like, you're not going to manifest $1 million like that if you're broke, okay? And there's a point where your consciousness gets to a degree where you realize the $1 million was bullshit anyway. It's fake. It's nonsense. It's digital currency. It's not going to make your life any better. But what does make your life better is the internal riches, the wealth of no identity, of not pretending to be a particular thing. Now, it's not saying that we're not going to wear masks. A guru wears robes. You know, you've seen the yogis in India that white out their faces with ashes. You see the Buddhists that wear the robes. The businessman wears a suit. So you're going to wear a mask because we have a face. We have facial features. We have perspectives on how we think that we should groom ourselves. So don't worry about that. That is a separate scope of identity. That's just how you want to be seen, perceived, and looked upon by people outside of you. I mean, the truth of the matter, who was it? Ram Dass's guru. You know, they used to call him Crackpot Baba, because he would go around and look for these broken pots that people would discard, and he'd put it on his head, and he would take offerings, and he would use it for drinking water, and he'd, all the stuff that you need with a little bowl. But he wouldn't wear clothes. He would be naked because his ego had diminished to the point where there was no personal identity. Same thing with Ananda Miyama. She became so enlightened that she wasn't feeding herself and she was living off the light, and her followers got worried and started feeding her. And they took care of her like a child, because technically that's what the child is. It's the self. The true nature of the self is just idle curiosity. So when you raise your children Raise your children like you would raise yourself, and raise yourself like you would raise your friends, and be energetically prone to more positive thought processes. And then when you get to the point where you're so positive about things, manifestation happens. And then you can let that shit go too, and just live in the world, because the world is going to happen. There's no control. There's no control of outcome. You can go in a direction, but does it ever pan out exactly the way you thought it would? No. You go for that one car, and then you find out another car has better gas mileage, so you go with that. But all along in your mind, you thought that that one car was going to be the car that just changed your existence. You're going to get all the girls. You're going to get all the guys. You're going to attract a better job, by your identity. So we all need to take a moment, take a break, pause, and see what the fuck it is inside of our head that makes us do these things subconsciously. Most life stuff is knee-jerk reactions. The more you listen to people, the more they will answer their own questions. The more you listen to yourself, the more you'll answer your own questions. It's paradoxical, it's ridiculous, because nothing is set in stone. You can tell people something, and they will believe it so intrinsically, deeply into their soul, that they will make it become true. That's the placebo effect. And there's a beauty in that. So think of yourself and positive affirmations, and how you just discipline yourself to get up every morning and go for a run. And all of a sudden your cardiovascular system just opens up magically. Why do some pills work for some people and not others? Why do some people get hooked on painkillers and other people can just drop it like a bad habit? It's energy, it's your consciousness. It's how deeply entwined you are with your reality. It's all expansiveness. Nothing is concrete or definitive except your perception of it. So how you perceive life is how it will be. You can talk yourself into a hole very easily. There were how many people that were rich during the Depression that committed suicide when the stock market crashed? Because their identity was based on this monetary system that's not real either. And then you get yourself into such a deep sadness that that's all you start seeing is deep sadness. But there's a big, giant world out there. You don't have to stay in that sadness. I mean, you may be limited to your circumstances if you're raising kids, you're married, whatever. But like Paramahansa Yogananda said, that even the layman, the work everyday guy with the family, the householder, can also become enlightened. And he said that from experience, from understanding, not belief, from reality. Because all things are possible in all sections. So there was a time where yogis didn't allow women into their ashrams because they believed that only men can become enlightened. Because, well, the Buddha and Krishna and, all of the great enlightened ones were men, as far as they knew. But society has taken women out of the religious sect to create more division. Because the more division you have, the less awakened people will become. Fewer and fewer people being awakened, the more and more slaves you have to a system that needs hunks of meat to operate systems. To go to work every day, to sit in the cubicle, to drive the truck, to deliver the mail. right? You need division, because if you didn't have it and everybody became aware and awakened all at once, nothing would get done. Or everything would get done. I don't know. So, the moral of the story is, watch your thoughts. Because you will create the world that you live in. And you'll influence the people around you to substantiate those beliefs. If you're always worried about your kids getting in trouble or causing a ruckus, they will. If you don't pay attention to your children and you're always kind of pushing them off, they won't feel for you the way they're supposed to. And they won't feel for others the way they're supposed to either. And then they will get bad self-image. My grandma used to worry about me because I used to stay up really late and play with a band when I was a kid, and I wouldn't get home until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and there she'd be sitting, waiting for me to get home, and I'm like, why? I told you I was going to be out late. Oh, I'm just worried about you. I'm worried about you. I'm like, but why? Well, because there's a lot of bad things out there. Well, she had experienced her son dying of an overdose while he had stayed out late. So she naturally put together this idea that when children stay out late, they die. And you get to bury your kids. Now, I was a fairly responsible young man. I didn't do crazy shit. I didn't do intense drugs. Smoked a little weed. Took some mushrooms here and there. But I knew I was fine. And there was no reason to worry. But she didn't. But my personality was stronger than my grandma's. It always has been. And in that is power. Where your thoughts go, energy flows. I was stronger than my stepfather energetically. Because there were things I just inherently knew. Things that I was like, why do you want to treat people like that? Doesn't make any sense. And no matter how many times I got stepped on, I still treated people the same way, and I still do. I'm still, I talked to a friend from high school here a few months ago, and he's like, man, you're exactly the same as you were when you were a kid. And I'm like, of course. Why would I change that? It's good for me. It feels right. He goes, well, yeah, but a lot of people get traumas and they build these things up and then they, turn into other things. And I've noticed that too. And it's sad. But I know a few friends from high school, man, that are exactly the same as they were back then. And they're still pretty cool people. Whatever you attach to is what you're going to become. And that will also reflect your friends, your family, everybody. If you don't pay attention to your husband or your wife, they're going to stop paying attention to you. We know when relationships are done. We know when situations are done. We know where we're going at all times because we're creating it. So, as always, much love.